Hello again, fellow audiophiles. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of my podcast, Making Waves with WaveTheory. If you would like an audio-only version of this podcast so you can listen on the go or just not be in front of a screen, you can stream or download from Podbean, link down in the description. These episodes are also available on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, and Spotify. Links down in the description. So head over to your platform of choice to listen, and please hit that follow button while you're there. All right, on with the show. What do real audiophiles think about topics in our audio hobby? What do they like about the hobby? What do they dislike about it? What have they learned along the way? What kind of mistakes have they made? Hello again, fellow audiophiles. I am WaveTheory, and welcome to episode 8 of my podcast, Making Waves with WaveTheory. In this episode, I have a handful of my patrons on just to talk about topics in audio and what real end users of audio gear think about some of those questions I just named at the top of the show. All of them are here completely voluntarily, so I am very grateful to them for volunteering their time to have this conversation, and I hope you, the audience, enjoy it and find something to connect with in their thoughts and their advice. I have a featured music artist for you in this episode, and that is David Allan. So the out of commercial music clips and the bonus full demo track at the end of the episode will be by David Allan. See links down in the description where you can listen to his work. Finally, 2 quick notes on the recording itself here. One, I am a bit under the weather as I record this, so you might hear a bit of a nasally tone from me. Also, these guests on the episode today are just average Joe end users, so they were using the microphones and the systems that they had access to, so we were unable to get fully professional audio level here, but honestly, it ended up sounding reasonably okay. Just wanted to make you aware of that. All right, we'll go ahead and get to the groovy intro music by Mia Edenber and Benjamin Shielden, and then we'll get into my roundtable conversation with some, lack of better term, average Joe audiophiles about their thoughts and feelings about some audio topics. Here we go. All right, with me, I have a handful of my patrons here, and these patrons, they are just regular audiophile folk. And as I mentioned in the intro, I thought it would be fun just to hear from real audiophiles, some things that they have learned on their audiophile journey. So we're going to go just in alphabetical order here because I don't know the order that the grid will look on the final recording. So David is here. David, how are you?
I'm great.
Good. Thanks for being here. I'm doing well, thanks. Well, actually, I should mention, you might, the audience may hear this in the recording. I am a little bit under the weather today, unfortunately. And so if there's a sudden dropout, it's probably because I had to hit the mute button to cough or sneeze or blow my nose or some wonderful thing like that. So then let's see. We'll come back to David in a minute. We also have Mike. How's it going, Mike?
Hey, what's up?
Hey, how you doing?
Good.
Good. And we have Tom. Hello, Tom. How are you?
Hello. Good to meet you all.
All right. Yeah, so we have often chatted with each other. Like there is a WaveTheory's Discord channel patron Discord channel chat group that we do on Sunday evenings. So you're also, to the audience, partially getting a look behind that curtain just to get a small flavor for what that is like. Here. So what I want to start with, because I always find this fascinating, and I want to know who we are. Oh, we just had someone new join us too. We have Jim. Hey, Jim, how are you?
Hey, good. How's it going?
Hey. All right, Jim. We are recording, just to let you know. So, you know, we're rolling. All right. What I want to do here real quick is just kind of work around the group. We'll go mostly alphabetical again. I am always curious, how did you get into this hobby? What brought you into it? What keeps you into it? Like, why audio to this level? And again, we'll just go alphabetical again. So, David, you're up. Why are you here?
Well, I've always enjoyed listening to music. It's always been a hobby of mine. And I've had systems to play that music of varying quality over the years. But sometime around, I don't know, 2019, 2020, something like that, I decided I have the means. Why not try to put together a really good sounding system and really, try to achieve something that I never was able to before. So started off, with on the low end with like a shit Magni or something like that, and then just I got the bug to keep trying to improve the sound, and so I've been doing that since then.
Right. So you said around 2020. Was this a COVID adventure for you?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, I'm finding that to be a common thing here as well. Some people got into it there. All right. Having just joined us here a little bit late is Jim. Now, Jim's story, I think, is a little bit different, but I will let him tell it. So, Jim, why audio? What brings you into it? Why are you here?
I've always, since I was a kid, kind of been into music and that sort of thing. And kind of started piecing together vintagey hi-fi systems, grade school, middle school, that sort of thing, just as a way of listening to music, kind of as I started listening more and more. Had an uncle who's into hi-fi, and a couple friends' dads had some systems, and I always enjoyed that they were better, but I didn't think too much about them for the most part, other than they're good, but it didn't really matter to me because it wasn't anything I could do as a kid. As I got into like middle school, going into high school, I picked up actually a really nice Kenwood turntable at an auction or a garage sale or something like that, and that kind of started my vinyl journey, which is really what kind of steered me into hi-fi. Started buying records and all that, and kind of all through middle school and high school just worked odd jobs for a couple extra bucks to buy records and CDs. And for a while there, it was really hard to buy new records, so it was mostly CDs. But I was able to get a few hundred CDs by the time I was going into high school. So then that joined the Army for a while there, and that kind of all went by the wayside. That's when I picked up my first better set of headphones, just because I, being deployed and stuff, didn't really have a option for a stereo. And then
you can't take speakers with you to the barracks, huh?
No, you can try, but they get upset sometimes.
All right.
But after that, stuff was in boxes for a long time. I bought my first house, and found some better speakers at a pawn shop, and kind of decided to hook my turntable back up. Walked into the only hi-fi shop in town, and while I was there, they offered me a job. So that's kind of where I've been.
Cool.
But really working in the industries kind of allowed me to afford it and try different things and that sort of stuff. So it works out.
Awesome. Jim, I'll let you plug your store at the end of the episode. So before we get out of here, we'll let you talk your store up. All right.
Cool.
Thanks for sharing that. Mike, you're up. Why are you here?
I've always liked music. I never really got serious about it. I put together a decent stereo system for myself, but never really wondered what was possible beyond that. But then almost exactly 2 years ago, I won a pair of Monoprice headphones. It was one of their planar magnetic models, and a portable amp, a Fozzy SK01, and it blew everything away that I had heard up to that point. And then I just started wondering, well, what else is possible? And I've come pretty far since then.
Cool. All right. And Tom, what's your story, Tom?
Yeah. So my story is that I never really was into audio that much for most of my life. Actually, I guess I was a little bit. I was into certain artists like Praga Khan. I don't know how many of you are familiar with Praga Khan, but I love Praga Khan. He's kind of an underground, EDM techno type of new wave stuff from the 90s. And I got into it back in the 90s because I knew somebody at the time that I got, was a close friend that was into Praga Khan. And she actually got me into it. And I started listening. And I would just listen to him for years and years, and Lords of Acid, which is he also co-founded. And then that went on, for years. And then during COVID, I guess it was maybe a little bit before COVID or around COVID, I started listening to, watching YouTube. I stumbled across the Zeus Pantera, which most of you are familiar with. And I would just laugh at his videos. I thought he was hilarious. And so I started looking at the equipment he was showing off, and I was like, "Whoa, I wonder what that sounds like." And I kind of have an obsessive personality, I guess you could say. So I kind of just got hooked, and I'm like, let me try that. Okay, let me now try this. Okay, let me try that now. And I just started buying things like crazy. And before I knew it, I was spending thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars on different audio
Yeah.
equipment. So yeah, that's
Yeah,
kind of how I started.
it's a disease as much as it is anything sometimes. It
Yeah.
seems like. Yeah. I guess I'll go ahead and share my story real quick because I don't know that I've said this in a couple of places, but maybe not everyone has heard it. So much like you guys, it started with a love of music. And for me, a lot of that was born from the fact that I come from a musical family. My mom plays piano. She's better at it than she gives herself credit for. My dad is also quite musical. He picked up and learned how to play bass guitar while I was still living at home. And then my brother also he is formally trained on saxophone, but he also self-taught himself how to play piano and cello. Grew up in a religious family, and so that my family was always part of the music part of church services and all of that. So I was always around music, and some of my earliest memories are actually mom putting me to bed. And I mean, I'm a little kid, 3 years old, and I say earliest memories, I mean earliest. And she'd put me to bed, and then she'd go to the next room over and she would practice her piano as I was falling asleep. So I would often fall asleep to listening to her practice, Beethoven, Mozart, Bach, all that kind of stuff there. And dad had a fairly decent stereo as well. And I remember being in the room once because mom's piano and dad's stereo shared the same room because we didn't have the biggest of houses. And she played something on her piano, and then she turned to my dad and said something to the effect of, "What is it supposed to sound like?" And then he dropped the needle on a vinyl, and all of a sudden I was hearing the same thing that my mom had just played through the stereo system. I mean, young child's mind blown, right? And then from there, it just so that's where a love of music started. I was never blessed with the patience to learn how to play an instrument, unfortunately. But when I was 10 years old, we were in a small church. Mom and dad and all they were involved in the choir, so they were up at the front of the church all of the time, and there was no one to run the sound system. And so my dad just kind of turned around and looked at me and said, "You're going to learn how to do it." And so that was kind of baptism by fire in terms of learning how to listen and pick out what's going to start causing feedback here in a moment on this microphone, and just kind of developing a critical ear from there. And then as I grew older, I got interested in home theater for a while. Still am, just not as crazy interested as I am in music playback anymore, and would like to explore more speaker stuff, but having been in apartments or a grad student, and all of that, and now having a family, headphones has just made a lot more sense, logistically when it comes down to it. So that's the quick version of my story there as well. And I thank you guys for indulging me on that, because I'm always curious, like, how did we get here? And I hope the audience found that interesting as well. So with that, I'm going to start asking a few questions about things you have learned along this journey. So let's start with this. What is a mistake you have made along your audio journey? Okay. And so, like, words of wisdom that you have learned from that. As I guess we could keep going in the same order. It makes sense. So David, how have you screwed up and what did you learn from it?
Okay, so I definitely screwed up when I started buying gear brand new and paying tax, because if you find that you don't like it and you have to resell it, you're going to lose some money that way, and you're never going to recoup any of the taxes that you spent. Now, I'm in California, so we have relatively high taxes here, like close to 10%. So that's just, I'm never going to recoup that. So that was one thing. The other thing it's related is just to not be afraid of buying used. There are great communities like the HeadFi community or US Audio Mart, places like that, where you can find like-minded people that have reputations. You'll get gear that, if they're trusted, you'll get gear that's in good condition and nothing to be afraid of. And if you are careful in the used price that you pay, you understand what the going rate is for a piece of gear, there's a good chance that you can try it out and just resell it if you don't like it without losing a bunch of money. So that'd be number one for me, is just learning how to not lose as much money in this hobby.
Awesome. That's a good one. And I agree. The used market can be a great place to get really good values and, relatively speaking, save money. Definitely. All right, Jim, a mistake you've made and what you learned from it.
I probably, special circumstance here, but have been fortunate enough that based on my circumstance, I haven't had to really make any mistakes for my own enjoyment, because I can typically kind of try things beforehand, and get access to a lot of people's personal systems and that sort of thing. But I will say that I have several times gotten really excited kind of by hype trains about different things, and have either tried to purchase them for myself or get them into our store to sell to people and that sort of thing, and been pretty disappointed just by that sort of thing, but yeah, it's pretty fortunate.
So the lesson
overall.
there is probably that hype trains cannot always be trusted.
Yeah.
Be leery of hype train. Yeah, I think that. And I think, like, out of the corner of my eye here, I think I saw all of us nod the instant that you said beware of the hype train. I think we all just kind of nodded our heads. So for people who are not watching this on video, we all kind of in unison were like, yep, that's one. All right, cool. Thanks. Mike, a mistake you've made and what you learned from it.
Well, I would have to agree with buying used to save money. That's also easier to try out a lot of stuff and learn what you like. I always thought that I would be more into like tubes and like a musical kind of sound signature, but I find myself leaning toward reference, I think. So that's not something I would have ever guessed. And the only way I've figured that out is by trying stuff. You can always resell what you buy, and also you're gonna encounter things that you never would have thought that you might like or not. Like how headphones fit, like the Edition XS are way too big, even on the smallest headband size, which is not something I would have ever expected. The FIO FT1s, while they sound great, the ear cups are too small for my ears, so they went back right away. Just try a bunch of things and figure out what you like, and then once you think you know what you like, that's when you budget big and go go for the best that you can get.
All right, so it sounds like the mistake in there was like probably just not really quite being aware of what you like and dislike yet first. Okay. And I think that actually is, we're going to circle back to that one, because that's one of the questions that I had for discussion here is like, how did you figure out what you like and you don't like? So we're going to unpack that one further here in a little bit. All right, Tom, a mistake you made and what you've learned from it.
Yeah, so the downside of going last is everybody else takes all the good ones. But yeah, that's I agree with everything that's been said so far. I think the things I would add are trust and patience. So don't trust reviewers. Sorry. What I mean by that is find a reviewer that you click with. I've been through a lot of reviewers of audio equipment, and I trusted them. Maybe trust is not the not the right word. I mean, maybe more it's like I assumed that what they were hearing was what I would hear. And I quickly realized maybe not quickly, but I realized over time that everybody hears things differently. It's an extremely subjective hobby. And what one person says, even if they're a very well-respected person in the audiophile industry, like even if they say, "Oh, this sounds fantastic," it's not necessarily going to sound fantastic to you. I found that very quickly. And then because I ended up buying a whole bunch of stuff that some reviewers were saying, "Oh, this is fantastic. You definitely got to get this," and that bit me a bunch of times. I ended up buying things that I ended up hating. So the other thing is patience. I don't have patience. Like I said, I'm a very obsessive person. So
this is an ongoing mistake, is what?
Yeah,
it's not. Yeah,
I have yet to correct it. So
okay.
This is me telling myself, have some patience. Well, I mean, those of you who know me, some of you know me decently well so far. I'm constantly, I got to try this, I got to try that, I'm going to buy this, buy that. Like I just bought a tube deck and I ended up buying 5 different tubes that I'm going to roll with it before I even receive the deck. So it's like I don't have patience, right? So so yeah, just have patience if you can. Maybe if you're like me, you can't, but try to have some patience. Sit with a piece of equipment for a while, listen to it, get to know it, understand what you like about it, understand what you don't like about it, and really have that inform your next purchase on the used market. And then the other thing I would say is reviewers are great. I love listening to reviewers. That's one of the reasons why I'm sitting here right now. But get involved with that reviewers community if you can. They have Patreons. They have, so pick the reviewer that you think you'd click with the best. Join that reviewers Patreon. Get involved in their channels, their chats. And because you're going to find a lot of people in there that are very like-minded, and you're going to get a lot more information and a lot more subjective analysis of things that will really help inform your decision. So it's a great way to make friends too. So I think that's good for me.
Okay, cool. Thanks, guys. I'm going to add one that I haven't heard come up, and this one could possibly be controversial. We'll see. I had to learn the hard way that measurements don't mean everything. Right? Like I come from a very sciencey background. Like, I mean, I went all the way, did all the hard work to get a PhD in physics, right? So, like, I love the science, I love the data, I love the numbers. That's all great. What I learned very quickly was the disconnect that often, not always, but can very often happen between the numbers that are thrown around in our hobby and what the experience is actually like when you listen to something. So like I got caught up in that THX hype train. Like I was nodding with Jim earlier when he said hype trains, because I don't know if you remember when THX headphone amps dropped there in like around 2018, 2019, something like that, where when Mass Drop dropped the THX AAA 789 and everyone was like, oh, this is the Endgame amp, buy one and be happy forever, because it measured perfectly, right? And so I didn't get that one. I think I got the SMSL THX amp that came after shortly thereafter, but it was the same story, right? It was the perfect measurements and all of that. And then I just did not enjoy listening to it. It was not a nice experience, like, at all. So that kind of encapsulates a lot of the things that you guys were saying in there, for one, because like I got swept up in the hype train that was fueled up by some reviewers at the time. And then, of course, the measurements, like, ooh, shiny measurements. And, you know, our ears, as imperfect tools as they are still the best tools any one of us has to determine what we do and do not like listening to, right? So I think that's the thing, that's something to remember, too, is that, yes, your ears can be tricked. They're still the best tools you have. So don't forget that. Yeah. Are you enjoying this content? Please help me keep it going by becoming a YouTube channel member. If you become a YouTube channel member, not only will you help me keep doing cool content like this, but you can get benefits such as being able to talk to me and my audio buddies on Discord, getting to watch my review videos early, or getting access to exclusive customers-only content. Head over to my YouTube channel and become a member today. Tom, we can let you go first on the next question, so you don't get just the crap answers left over all the time.
Thank you.
If you want, yeah. All right. So, we did mistakes here. I think a lot of you kind of answered one of the questions I have, which was like, what's the biggest thing you've learned? And I think those two ideas actually are connected there. So let's come back to this question. What was the process like? How did you go about figuring out what you like and what you don't like? Because a couple of you guys hit on this already. It's super important as you're getting into this hobby to figure out what you like and what you don't. Well, how did you do it? Tom, you go first.
Well, that's a good question. I think that's going to, I think that'll be answered very differently depending on the person. How I did it is, unfortunately, I did it a very expensive way by just buying a whole bunch of stuff and going through things. Like I've probably bought and sold probably close to 24 DACs, maybe a couple dozen amps. Like I've gone through, I think, pretty much every major audiophile headphone. I've gone through probably 25, 30 headphones. So that's how I did it. Well, I mean, I tried listening to things like at stores, but quickly realized, okay, there are no brick and mortar, or very, very few and far between brick and mortar stores that carry this level of audio equipment. Near where I live, I found one. This was about a year ago. I found one that claimed to have audiophile headphones, and on their website, they showed pictures of the store, and it looked like they had audiophile level headphones. So I drove an hour and a half to get there, and they ended up having two different ones, and that was it. And one of them I already had. So that was disappointing. More recently, actually not long ago, so I met WaveTheory there. I went to a Can Jam, and that was great. So if you can get out to a Can Jam, I think that's a great way to try things. It's a little bit of a noisy environment, but at least you can try a lot of the gear that you just don't have access to. Another thing I did or am doing, if you're lucky and you can make a good relationship, two types of relationships. One with the community, like I was saying earlier, join the Patreon because you'll meet people in the reviewers' Patrons and other audiophiles that might be willing to let you borrow a piece of equipment for a couple of weeks or something and try it out. But
You're doing
another
some
thing I would
great
do,
advertising for me there, Tom.
yeah,
I appreciate it.
everybody
Yeah,
join.
continue.
So,
Yeah.
so yeah, that's one way is like if you get close enough to be friends with a few people, you can borrow a headphone, borrow an amp, or if it's not too much to ship or whatever. I mean, sometimes when people get to know you and trust you, you can maybe borrow things. But another thing is to get a good relationship with a dealer, an audio dealer. So most dealers are online. I have a dealer I deal with that I have a really good relationship with. I've known him for, I've been buying and selling, selling things with him for a couple of years, I guess now. And he'll actually do that. He'll send me headphones and he'll be like, "Hey, here's a new headphone. I have a demo pair. Here you go. I'll send it to you for a few weeks." And he'll even send me stuff without me even asking, which is kind of cool. Probably because he knows I'm going to end up buying it. But so yeah, like finding a dealer, like an online dealer that you can build that relationship with and maybe demo things with.
All right, cool. Thanks, Tom. All right, Mike, we're going to reverse alphabetical order here. So you're up next here. Same question. How did you figure out what you liked and what you don't like?
Well, I'm still figuring it out. I came into this not knowing anything really about headphones or, high-end audio. So once I decided I wanted to get into it, I just started watching a ton of reviews from everybody and just started picking and choosing different things to buy here and there and tried things out. And that's how I'm figuring out what I like, and I'm still doing it.
I think that's a really important point, is that it is a process, right? You get a little better every time, and like you get a pretty good idea, but our tastes are not static either. So I think
True.
you make a really good point there, that a lot of us are still figuring this out. Cool. All right, Jim, what say you? How did you figure out what you like and what you don't?
On the headphone side of things, actually kind of got initially lucky when I bought my first set. I was looking at I think kind of leaning towards the AKG 701s, having never heard them, and just I thought they looked cool, had good reviews, etc. So at the time it was Headroom owned headphone.com, and I Skype called them from the Middle East and wanted to place the order, but the sales guy I was talking to, I still remember this was in 2008. His name was Mike, and he's just started asking me a bunch of questions before he let me order those. And then based on the answers to my questions, he said, actually, you should buy these Denons. And I'm like, I kind of felt uneasy about it, but I was like, all right, I don't. And I bought them, and I've loved them. And actually, I have yet to find something that I like better, though I'm trying. And on the headphone side, a friend and I have been just kind of running through as many headphones as we can get our hands on, and kind of seeing how they all compare and what's different and unique about each of them. And a lot of it's just like on the speaker side. You just got to try things. I found that even some speakers or headphones that I don't like on one amp, I throw it on another amp, and it's magical. And and I have, and it's kind of the same thing with amps too. It just kind of comes down to system synergy and getting everything to play nice together and work well together. But I mean, you just really have to try stuff. On the speaker side, I was lucky there too. What I ended up really liking and kind of have settled on across the board was essentially the first hi-fi system I'd ever heard. But 20 years later, just kind of the evolution of those products. But I don't know if it's because of that first system, the impact it had on me, or just lucky. But yeah.
All right, cool. David, you're up.
Well, I think nothing's helped me more than just trying a lot of stuff, right? Just trying a lot of gear, but not just trying it, but kind of doing A/B testing and really being like methodical with it. Like have a pair of headphones, but then maybe like swap out the amp and see what's the impact of that. But and taking notes and just just carefully comparing things. I mean, I'll use sites like forums and videos like yours and from other YouTubers to kind of help me zero in on what I want to try. But then I need to like get some different gear and try it out myself. So that's just been the number one thing, is just trying a lot of gear. And of course that gets expensive, so it can be difficult, but that's helped more than anything.
This was definitely the recurring theme through what you guys were talking about here, is that you just got to try a lot of things. And I agree with that. And that's what I did too. I think a lot of people, when they're just starting out on this, is they just kind of spin their wheels and feel a little bit overwhelmed by all of the choices that are out there. And like, there's a really good piece of advice from Steve Guttenberg. Actually, he's if you don't know who he is, he's been a reviewer for a long time, mostly on the speaker side, but he does some headphones and reviews too. And he characterized himself, and I thought this was a really interesting point, as a music first audiophile, in that what helped guide him on his journey was like knowing what kind of music he loved the most and the aspects about that music that drew him in, and then trying to find gear that was like, highlighting, accentuating, complementing those features in there. So like my advice to like, before to kind of guide, aim that trying a bunch of different things, is to just start with, what kind of music are you into? And like, does that music have a lot of bass? Is it the bass that's in there? Is it like, is it a timbral thing for you? There are all kinds of different reasons you could like different kinds of music. What is it about that music that gets you into it? And then you got to start trying from there. I personally think it's a good idea to start and play around in the entry level first, because it's cheaper, a lot less risk. But then also, as you scale up in gear quality, it's like you understand why things are getting better as price goes up. If you go
I have
up
a counter to that.
Go ahead. Let's hear it.
Well, like I made a list of the mistakes I've made, right? And of course, hindsight's 20/20. But I would say that I think one of the mistakes I made was assuming that I would be okay with like the cheapest gear, or the lowest tier of gear. And this is not to like criticize the shit Magni or whatever. It's a fine amp, or it worked for me at the time, but it didn't satisfy my desire to try to get the best sound quality that I could possibly get. And in hindsight, if I look at like the pattern of what I bought and sold, I started on one price tier. Let's call it the sub 500 price tier. And then I kind of convinced myself, well, let's go into like the $1,000-ish price gear. And then let's go up to maybe the $2,000 tier. And that's where I am now, somewhere in the $2,000 to $3,000 range for most of my gear. But if I would have just started there and started with what I could afford, like I could have afforded that before, but I just said, well, maybe I don't need to spend that money. Let me just see if I could be satisfied with the less expensive gear. But if I look at what I bought and sold, I would have saved a lot of money just going straight to that price tier to begin with, rather than assuming that I would be satisfied with the sub $500 tier. But you have a good point too. I mean, it's, you could look at it in multiple
Yeah,
ways.
because that's one of those things. Like, I don't know how we would know without the hindsight,
Maybe.
right? Because I think that's one thing that we have to understand in the hobby too, is that like earning the rights to have hindsight is its own kind of investment in a way. With all that. But that's a really interesting point. And anyone else here, feel free to jump in. Did anyone have any thoughts on what David and I were talking about there?
Yeah, I agree with what you're both saying. Like I the same.
Mm-hmm.
I went through the same thing. Like I started out. I've always been kind of, like, oh, I want to save my money and all that kind of stuff, and I do, and that's a good thing. But like at the same time, like when I first started out with this hobby, I was like, oh, okay, I'm gonna buy. I think one of my first amps was that THX 789 we were talking about. Because of the hype train, I got caught on it, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna buy that amp. It's gonna be great. Um, so I ended up buying a whole bunch of gear that was only, $500, $600, like sub 1,000. And I thought anybody who spent more than $500 on a piece of gear was absolutely insane. And I'm like, why? How could it possibly sound that much better? I don't understand. Like
I think we were all there once.
yeah. And then here I am now, spending god awful amounts of money. Spending enough money now, I can go buy a pretty nice car, on audio equipment. It's so like but that hindsight, like you were saying, is what like I think back and I'm like, oh, why did I start with all that? But at the same time, if I didn't start with all that cheaper equipment, I wouldn't necessarily have that knowledge and the satisfaction, I guess you could say, of hearing the more expensive equipment. But it's not for everybody. Again, like please don't PSA, don't put yourself into debt, for this hobby. That's the only
yeah. I hope we don't have to say that out loud, but we probably should. It's like, don't buy gear you can't afford. Pay cash, don't go into debt. Yeah.
It's like that with anything, I think, just about.
Yeah. I mean, I can understand mortgages and car payments, but, when you start getting into this entertainment stuff like this, don't go into debt for it. It's just not worth it at that point. From someone who really loves this stuff, who has gone so insane, he's started a YouTube channel and now has more gear than he can fit in his room. Then, don't go into... Make at least reasonable financial decisions. Only buy what you can afford. Yeah. Anyone else want to make any points on that before we move on to the next thing? Just checking in on that.
I would say if there is a way that you can figure out what it is you do like, before buying anything, or even just getting you something, not even like low end, but like very secondhand, very almost free or whatever, to get you by, just something that works and is hooked up right. Don't take shortcuts and stuff, because that just ruins everything. But if you can listen to friends' stuff, go places, or like you can jam or any kind of event, or any way you can get exposure to list, find out what you like and don't like. I mean, I agree with what kind of everybody's been saying. There's pros and cons to it. I oftentimes look at stuff and I think, like in the entry level, that it's like a waste of money. Things. I'm a big turntable guy, and I see people talking about, buying like a $60 turntable and, then wanting to upgrade the cartridge to an $80 cartridge and whatever. And I look at it and I'm like, you're just throwing away $60. Like, you're not getting anything. But maybe you are. And in the end, it's all about finding what makes you happy. Maybe the high end doesn't make you happy. Maybe you can be happy at the entry level or somewhere in the middle. But if there's a way that you can find to figure that out beforehand, you might be able to save yourself some money by not keep going up, and then just kind of start where you might end up, I guess.
Did you know you could buy access to individual review videos over on Patreon? That's right, over on Patreon, you can buy individual videos from my review library, both before their public release and commercial free, for just $5 or $3, depending on what kind of video it is. Head over to patreon.com/wavetheory1 for more info. All right, switching gears then. How do we feel about the concept of Endgame? Is that even real? That's a question that's out there. How about Mike? We start with you on this one, and then we'll go alphabetically around from there. So, Mike, do you think Endgame is a thing? Have you reached it? Probably not if you said you're still figuring out what you like, but I'll let you talk. Go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess it's subjective to everybody, probably depending on your budget. Have I reached my end game? Maybe. I feel less of an urge to upgrade over the things that I have now. Yeah, I don't know.
Fair enough. All right, Tom, what do you think?
Yeah, I thought I've reached my end game probably like 30 times now, and then I realize I haven't. You know, I think Endgame is a combination of your thoughts on like, okay, well, how much am I willing to spend, and what's good enough, and you know, how many headphones do I really need? How many amps do I really need? How many docks do I really need?
All of them.
Like I kept saying, yeah, all of them. So
Yeah.
as I was saying earlier about joining Patreons, or joining groups, it is a little bit of a double-sided sword, I guess, from that aspect. And because when you're in these group chats and you're conversing with a whole bunch of other audiophiles, you start hearing like, oh, this person just bought this deck and this person just bought this amp. And then you start, the FOMO really starts building in you. And you're like, oh, I really want to try that now. And I just told myself last week, I'm not going to buy anything new. And then I end up buying something new. But yeah, like being in the audiophile community definitely builds the FOMO, like talking to other people. Like if I could just become a hermit and isolate myself and wear my headphones all day and just listen, that would probably be okay. But because like I'm in this other chat and people were talking about somebody who just bought this MSB deck, which they're extremely expensive at like $100K or whatever. And I even caught myself thinking to myself, oh, maybe I should try that. But no, I'm not going to go that far. But yeah, it's the FOMO definitely builds up.
Jim?
I think Endgame's definitely got to be a subjective thing, because I think objectively it doesn't exist. There's always better and different and more, and it doesn't matter what you do. There's always something else, and you can spend as much money as you like. There's still something better or something different, or that you're going to like in a different mood or whatever. So, yeah, I mean, at some point you could just decide, I like this. Like, I'm happy with what it is. Yeah, I could do better. I know what better is, but this makes me happy for what it is. So it's reachable, but you have to decide where it's at yourself.
Mhm. David.
I think I'm pretty close to Endgame for me because couple reasons. One is I don't really see myself spending for any one piece of gear, whether it's transport or DAC or amp or headphones. I don't see myself spending more than somewhere in the 2 to 3K range for any of that gear. So like there's a limit. I've just made a decision. I'm not going to be trying things outside of that price range, right? So for what is on the market right now, I would say for everything except for headphones, I feel like I'm pretty much there. I'm very happy with my transport. I'm very happy with my DAC. I'm very happy with the amp that I have now. I'm very happy with my headphones too, although I think that's probably where I could see myself potentially finding something down the line. And there's a couple of headphones that I have had my eye on that I haven't been able to listen to yet. So if I decide one day to try those out and I like them better, then maybe that'll be my new end game. But yeah, I mean, so for today I'm pretty close, but there's always new gear coming out, and like to Tom's point, we're constantly being exposed to people talking about all the new stuff, and then the FOMO builds up. So so we'll see. But for today, I'm pretty content. But tomorrow could be another story.
Tomorrow's a new day. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is one of the questions that comes up a lot in our I mean, the term end game is thrown around a lot in our hobby on forums and stuff. And this is why I wanted to bring in guys like you who are just like end users for the most part and ask about this, because I'm in a unique position as a reviewer where it's like I'm constantly switching in and out new stuff, right? And so like Endgame for me isn't really even a question because that's not really what I do anymore, right? It's not just about listening enjoyment for me anymore. It's like it's a job. I'm bringing in new gear, I'm listening to it, I'm reporting on it. So getting the your perspectives on that. My observation when looking at the hobby at large is that Endgame is a goal, but it's rarely ever reached, and it's usually not, when someone gets there, they very rarely stay there for very long. There's going to be exceptions to that, of course. We're probably going to get comments down in the comment section like, well, I reached my end game in this year and I'm perfectly happy. That's great, but I think that's probably a small percentage of people in here in our hobby, because there's the FOMO thing you guys are talking about, and then there's just the fact that we're gearheads. We like playing around with this stuff, right? We just do. Yeah. Any other points on that? Nope. All right. So if you had to pick a favorite thing about this hobby, and let's see, who have we not started with yet? Jim, I don't think you've gone first yet, so we'll let you go first on this one. If you had to pick a favorite thing about this hobby, what is it?
Oh, that is a tough one. You had to start with me on this one. Boy, I don't know. I mean, I do love gear.
Yeah.
Kind of across the board, and I like trying different things. I think it comes down to like, I love music, and I've always loved music, and it's a hobby that both being fun as a hobby on its own, because of the different gear and trying things, and that's fun, but then it also enhances the hobby of music, to basically, the two come together to make a super hobby, which is, the last thing anybody needs, but it's really enjoyable. And
a super hobby.
yeah.
I feel like we should all be wearing capes now.
But the music part of it is something I do forget about a lot, and have recently kind of been recapturing, because I got too into just the gear to where I'm just picking whatever music that I know will, I can analyze, equipment with. And I, lose sight of that, but getting back into the enjoyment of music, that's it. I mean, it just helps that.
Awesome. Yeah. Let's see. Mike, favorite part of this hobby?
For me, that's pretty easy. Discovering a new piece of gear that makes you go, ooh.
There you go.
You
That's a
know,
good one.
just finding something that takes your listening experience from here to here. When it's very obvious to you, that's what I enjoy, and I hang on to those things that do that for me. So
Cool. Nice. Tom, favorite part of this hobby?
Yeah, so for me, it's two things. One is kind of what I think Jim mentioned is being exposed to a lot more genres of music and a lot more artists. And, that's because, like, again, being in the chats, like the Patreon chats and such, talking to other people, I mean, we're all audiophiles. Like, fundamentally, the thing that kind of, well, theoretically got us into this hobby is the love of music. And I've probably learned about more artists and more types of music in the last couple of years than I have in my entire life. And that's really cool. So I love finding this new music, new sources, like what music sounds really cool on what type of equipment, all that kind of stuff. So that's one thing. The other thing that's really great about this hobby is I can make it Christmas Day whenever I want it to be. So if I want it to be Christmas Day, I just buy something new, and I wait by the mailbox very very happily and for my new piece of equipment to come. So that's kind of cool too.
Go. All right, David, your favorite part of this hobby?
I love that feeling when you get a new piece of gear and you put it all together. You sit down in your chair wherever you're going to listen to your music, and you hear the music in a way that you've never heard it before, to a quality level you've never heard it before. Like, do you know that feeling that you get when you find that piece of gear that just clicks and it takes it to another level? Like, I love chasing that. It's almost like a drug, right? I like chasing that feeling. Where you just get a big smile on your face because you're like, wow, I can't believe how good this sounds. And you just get that extra sense of enjoyment from the music. So I guess if it was one thing, I would just say it's like that moment, where you realize you've just heard something in a new and improved way,
Yeah. All of you guys really had a lot of overlap in your answers there. It was like always about it's about the music enjoyment and figuring out, and when those moments that you get where, as Mike said, it goes from here and then he holds his hand up higher to here.
Exactly.
I think you all kind of made a similar point in your own way about that exact same idea, and then the whole kid on Christmas morning, like, ooh, a new box on the porch today.
That's fun. When the delivery person comes with your new gear, yeah.
Yep.
I like that.
Yep, that is a lot of fun. Okay, we have to ask the opposite side of this question here. What is your least favorite aspect of this hobby? And we could probably be back to starting with David here. So, David, your least favorite aspect of this hobby?
I guess it would have to be just the quantity of, I mean, there's good and bad to this, but just the quantity of gear you have to go through to find what you like. It's not exhausting. There's like fun parts about it too, but it takes a lot of effort, So like, I wish it was easier to try new things. But there's no shortcut to just getting the gear at your house and trying it. So yeah, that's the downside, is just you have to go through a lot of gear to really figure out what you want. And that's expensive and time consuming.
Yep, it is that for sure. Jim, a least favorite aspect of this hobby?
It's gonna have to be certain people. I've noticed it kind of more exclusive or more prevalent in the audiophile community than other ones, is almost like a reverse gatekeeping, to where it's, oh, you spent this much on that thing, you're stupid for doing that, or that's not actually a good piece of equipment, you're wasting your money, or, whatever, this thing over here is all that you'll ever need. And it's proven that that's not better, and that sort of thing. And I feel like they're more vocal in the audiophile community, and pretty aggressive. And I think they do a lot of harm. And I see, people coming into the hobby and asking questions, and good questions, and then just people just really jumping on them, like trying to talk them out of trying different things, or doing things. And I think that probably ends up steering a lot of people out of the hobby, and it makes me sad, because I love this. I love doing this. Um, but yeah, it's certain people in the community.
Mike, your least favorite aspect?
Well, my least favorite thing is totaling up the amount of money that I've spent on the gear that I have. Yeah, the me from 2 years ago would think I'm crazy now, but that, when I look at the total amount,
Yeah. Yep. That one's come up a couple of times now. You and David both said that one. All right, Tom, your least favorite aspect?
Yeah, so I completely agree with what everybody said so far, especially Jim's comment about some people in the hobby. And I think for the most part, most audiophiles are really cool people, and yeah, but you do have these bad apples once in a while. But so I guess my answer for your question, though, is probably a little bit loaded, but like it's and this exists in a lot of hobbies. That this isn't just unique to audiophilia. I don't know if that's a word, but but
It
I
is.
think
It just sounds weird.
but I think the amount of snake oil in this hobby, I think, is just like way over the top. Now, I know some people feel that certain things are not snake oil, certain things are snake oil. Everybody has their different opinions on that, and that's perfectly fine. I'm not arguing that fact. It's just that I think there is a prevalence in some cases for this hobby to have more snake oil on average than other hobbies. And I think sometimes the companies take advantage of people a little much. Not all of them. I'm just saying, some of them might take advantage of the subjectiveness of things, and the marketing. And of course, they're trying to make money. They're all that kind of good stuff, and that's fine. But I think the snake oil can kind of get a little out of control sometimes, in my opinion.
I agree with a lot of what you guys are saying. That the total expense of this hobby, the price point, that's one of its biggest drawbacks for sure. On the other side of it, like when you get into it like I do, it's like my room is full. Like I have to figure out complete reorganization, because one thing that I was not told when I got into this reviewing gig was that there was going to be so many boxes, and I don't know what to do with all the boxes, right? So there's that. But Jim and Tom hit on this one, and I think this is probably the biggest problem in our hobby right now. Is just the toxicity that's in it. And like I agree with Tom, there definitely are some snake oily things out there, but even when there are, it's like we don't have to be mean to each other about it, right? So that's the big one for me too, is that there's definitely some strong tribalism that just isn't helping anyone.
Yeah, I think it's
in the hobby too. Go ahead.
I think it's important for people to remember when people express an opinion, it's a subjective opinion, and there's really no wrong or right with subjective. It's just your take. And so I think it's helpful. I think most of the communities that I belong to online, I think people are generally pretty respectful of that and understand when someone expresses a subjective opinion, but it's always helpful to just remember that. And, we should not be criticizing someone for their subjective views.
Yeah.
Because that's just all it is. It's their opinion, and that's okay. Everyone's allowed to have their own opinion.
And I think sometimes we forget that there's a balance to these things as well. Like, and what I mean by that is like the expression we all hear differently, right, is true. That's absolutely true. We all hear and experience things differently. And then it's also to a point, because we're all the same species too. Like, the processes that go on here all work the same way. Okay, for all of us. But we have slightly different physiological responses to things. We have different tastes and preferences, and so forth. So it's like I hear the extremes in the community one way or the other, where it's like it's all subjective. The objective side has nothing to offer, and then the opposite is also true, where it's like it's only the objective stuff matters. Never mind that subjective stuff that's not helpful. The answer is in the middle. Right. It's not one or the other. It's yes and I think a lot of us have forgotten that, and it's gotten toxic to the level that we've forgotten that, unfortunately.
Some sites are worse than others, I think, not to name names or anything, but
I think that is true too. We get into trouble real fast on that.
Yeah.
On that when we go down that road. But does anyone else want to add on to any of this? Because I think this is a really interesting conversation. So if anyone else has a thought, please jump in. We are nearing the end of the episode. I have just a couple more questions for the panel here. A reminder that I would really like Making Waves with WaveTheory to be a platform in which relatively unknown music artists can be introduced and presented before our music-loving hobby. So if you are a music artist, or you know a music artist who would like to be featured here on this podcast, please reach out to me and we will get them in the rotation. Don't forget that I have a full demo track from David Allan at the end of the episode as well, so be sure to check that out. All right, back to the show. Well, let's see. We've hit a lot of my main questions, and we're kind of just past the hour mark here in our recording. So let's see. Let me scan my questions here. Make sure that I didn't leave off. Okay. So I'm gonna ask each of you here. We're gonna wrap this up. And I'm gonna ask you. You can think for a moment if you need to. And what is your parting thought? If you just have one thing that you want to say to your community, what would it be? And we'll also let Jim go last on this one, because he gets to tell us about his store too when he's done. So we can let him have his plug in there. So I'll just throw this one out. Take a moment and think. I can trim this down if all we do is think a little bit, and then when somebody is ready to talk, go for it.
I have an answer to this.
All right, Mike, what you got?
This is a hobby, and it's supposed to be fun. Don't get obsessive. Don't get nuts. Just try to enjoy it for what it is.
That's good advice. It's really good advice.
Awkward silence.
That's all right. I can edit this part out. So if you,
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I agree with what Mike said. I think, it is a hobby. I think sometimes, again, I'll plug the Patreon again, chatting with people is awesome. Met some great people, including the people on this call. And, I've had some great conversations. I've learned a tremendous amount. I mean, when I started in this hobby, I knew next to nothing about audio, like just basics, and I've learned a lot, and a lot of people have taught me a lot of stuff. So I'm happy about that, but we are all human. Sometimes we get into discussions, and sometimes the discussions turn into heated debates, and but yeah, I agree. Like sometimes we just have to take a step back and just remember why we're doing this and why we're here. It's it's for the music, and it's for the love of the gadgetry, and just having a good time.
I got one for you.
What you got?
Well, I think this was already said in one form or another, but as valuable as reviewers like you are, and the community and message boards and things like that, nothing will ever be better than hearing something for yourself. Don't assume because someone hears it a certain way that you're going to hear it that way. So nothing is more important than just hearing it for yourself and deciding for yourself if you like something or not, because oftentimes just because 10 people like it doesn't mean or 100% or 90% of people say they like something. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to like it too. So hear it for yourself and make the decision for yourself based on that.
Yep. Good stuff. All right, Jim, you ready? All right.
Yeah, I'd say definitely try to be open-minded. Some of the best things I've ever heard, at first glance, I've been like, oh, this is just going to be terrible, and then have been absolutely blown away. And being open-minded, it can be hard, but just try things, talk to people, make friends, that sort of thing. Just try to enjoy it, and don't rule something out. Just try everything if you can. So, and if you want to try something and you're in Northeast Ohio.
Yes, here it is, the plug. All right.
Yeah, I work at a company called Sound and Vision Incorporated. There's a lot of them, but SV Ohio would be or Sound and Vision Ohio would be our website. We have 3 stores: Cleveland, Akron, and Columbus. Not so much headphones, almost no headphones actually, but trying to work on that a little bit. And but hi-fi, home theater, that sort of thing. We do a few other things as well, but yeah, stop in, check some stuff out. Be happy to run through 100 different speakers for you, or different amplifiers or whatever, but figure out what you like.
Cool stuff. All right, Jim, send me the URL for your store's webpage. I'll make sure that makes it into the show notes and the description on here. Gentlemen, I really appreciate you guys all being willing to come in and just shoot the breeze on this stuff. I enjoyed that. I really like hearing your thoughts on these things, and I hope the audience enjoyed it as well. So, David, Mike, Jim, and Tom, thanks so much. It was great having you here. We will talk to you later. Once again, a huge thank you to David, Jim, Mike, and Tom for volunteering their time to have this conversation. I really enjoyed talking with them about this stuff, and I hope that you enjoyed listening to it. All right, on the way out, as promised, we have a full demo track from David Allan. This is Rain Dance. Enjoy the music, everybody.